Hey everybody, how are you? This is Dr. Mike in Pro 17s. I wanted to introduce you to my good friend, Dr. Naota Hashimoto. You may have seen him at a variety of different events. He's probably the leader in terms of analytics and data tracking and management of the information inside your office. He owns a company called TrackStat. And we're here with him today to get to find out a little bit more about what he does, why he does it, and what the benefits are to clinics like ours of partnering with TrackStat to be able to help you run a better business. So the first thing I'd love to ask Doctor, he's actually a doctor too. He's in full time. He was in full time practice. How long were you in full time practice? Tell us a little bit of the
17
story.
years.
Oh my gosh! So
Yeah.
just recently, you've gone full time with TrackStat.
Yeah, like a year ago. Sold the
Okay.
practice. Sold it to an orthopedic surgeon. So that we did a
Wow.
lot of PI referrals with. So
That's awesome. So, Dr. Naota, how did you transition from being in practice as a chiropractor? How did you transition into starting a business that would help doctors track their stats?
yeah, that's a long story, but I'll tell you kind of like the quick and easy part of it. We had a busy practice. I was in masterminds with other people. We were doing three and a half, 3.3 on a bad year, 3.6 for an average year, and then we hit as high as 4 million in practice. So like that was a good practice. And one of the things that we did is we did these educational seminars. So we get advertised seminar, get a bunch of people in a room, 20, 30, 40, 50. We had as high as 140 people in a room, and we talk about kind of like what we did, how we serve the people, and then we do a paid consult, and then we get them in. And then I'd had people say, "Hey, you got to teach us how to do it." I didn't want to do it, didn't want to do it, explain it. And then my two friends, they just said, "Hey, we should do it." So we turned it into a business, and that thing took off like a rocket. We took it to 950 in the first year, 1.8 in the second year, 2.223 in the third year, and then COVID hit, and then boom, it just like the bottom fell out. But in that
Dang.
process, like we had all these zaps, like Zapier, connecting all these things, and we had custom made funnels before high level existed. And we ended up having to hire an engineer. I had a friend that worked at Google, really sharp engineer, and then just a piece of advice said, like, because I tried to hire developers in the past for like a couple little things, and the problem is you hire someone, they work on something, they don't quite get it, or the software changes, there's an update, it breaks, and you don't get a hold of them for months. So we hired him salary, and he's actually now our CTO. So friend helped me vet him because I didn't know how to tell if you're like awesome at code or you suck at code. So like he vetted him, and in between projects, like partners just said, like, I just said, it's like, if David's not working on anything, do you care if he works on this thing for Car Touch for me? He's like, I don't care. He's getting paid salary. As long as it doesn't infringe on the business, go for it. So like I had to track some stats, some patient tracking stuff, a unique way with like patient recalls where we scored the patients, better ones at the top, worst ones at the bottom. And like I used it. Then I was, in masterminds, people like, hey, that's cool. Can I have it? And I'm installing it on different people's offices. And then like I get like a random call, like it's almost like I'm a drug dealer. And like people said, it's like, hey, it's like, this is Hash, right? And I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, it's like Chris said that you got this thing. Can you hook me up? And like, I'm like installing this. I got like a couple dozen people using this software. We didn't have a name for it. We called it the tracker thingy. My wife said came up with TrackStat. It was like we got to come up with a name. We called it the tracker thingy. And
That's
like then I got a call from like one of my other buddies that was like using it. And then this guy loved it, but he wanted like this extra report. And he's like, I'll give you 5 grand for it. And I was like, sure. And like that is just like I felt like I got something here. And then but I didn't have I didn't have any time to work on it. And then a year before COVID happened, my dad got sick. And then it turns out at the end of everything, it's not about like a watch you didn't get, a car you didn't get, a house you didn't get. It was like meaning and purpose and what were you here for? And I just remember telling my wife, well, my dad was the most certain person about everything. And he like I could hold up this red water bottle and say it's red, and he's like, no, it's purple. Like I remember I show him the encyclopedia when he's a kid. Oh, that's not right. When Google came out, I show him stuff from the internet, and he's like, no, that's not right. And then he was the most certain person on the planet questioning his very existence. And it was like we talked for like 2.5 hours at the airport about meaning and purpose and what he did on this earth. and we came around to it, but like it was just watching him struggle with that for a few months. And it's just, I just remember telling Nora, I came home, it's like, like this thing that other people tell us that I want to do, like I want to do something with it. I don't want to wait till I'm 76 and dying of cancer. Like, and I remember when we were making money, I thought I would be so happy when I hit like certain points. And I was more happy when I broke, when we collected 276 grand in our first year in practice on our own. And I was like over the moon. I remember when we crossed that 100,000 point, like I went out and bought a Rolex. Like we were broke. Like, but I went out and bought a Rolex because like there's a
We did.
story
I'm
to the
buying a
Rolex.
Porsche. I'm buying a Rolex. Let's go.
When I was 8 years old, we grew up in a poor rural area, and like we were like dirt. I would say we were upper lower class or lower middle class. We did go to the food bank a lot of times for the last week of the month. So like we didn't have enough money for 30 days worth of food. So we usually had enough for 20, 21, 22, sometimes 25. And then as my dad did a little bit better, like sometimes we'd have enough money for like 30 days worth of food, which I spent my whole life like not having choices. Like the kind of cereal we got was at the food bank, or it was the cheapest one. And like we didn't get cereal in a box. It was the one in the bag. And like it was like my mom's cutting out coupons, and we go to this store for this, we go to that store for that. And the first time I saw someone that had choices, it was like a kid in my school's dad. And I remember he had a car, asked him about his car, he had a Mercedes and a watch. And that's kind of like, and I was 8. And I remember coming home and I told my mom, is like, because I asked him what he did. He said he's a businessman. I told my mom, is like, I want to be a businessman. And I didn't even know what that was, but like this guy, he had choices. And then we didn't have business people in the family, but some of my mom's cousins were dentists. And she's like, well, so my cousins are dentists. And that's when I decided I wanted to be a dentist, just because they were the only people in our family that had a business.
Yeah.
And like, that's kind of like what started it. And so, like, that is kind of like how I got here. And like the reason why I wanted to do this is like I've seen chiropractors fight about scope. I fight about what's the best. Is it subluxation? What technique? And I've realized that we're a profession of mavericks. I think it's the best profession out there, but like getting them to agree on anything. Like you look at PTs and they're growing and they fight with each other internally, but like on the surface, they have a unified front. Same thing with medical doctors and chiropractors. We're our own worst enemies. So I think like something that they would all agree on is having an extra 30K in your pocket. Even if they went out and bought a bunch of watches, Porsches, I think that's going to do more for the profession than anything because
Yeah.
they're going to have a fancy car. Someone's going to see them driving in that car. And then they're like, hey, I'm going to be a chiropractor. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's like, I think it's a great profession. I love it. Met my wife in it. And like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. Right. But like, I felt like I told my wife, it's like we're young enough to fuck it all up. And like getting back into like our practice, like I remember I took home over 1 million and I thought that was like a big number I wanted to hit. And I just wasn't happy. Like
Yeah.
I was not spending
People,
time with my
people,
kids
people
and
don't believe that. People don't believe that, and but it is true. And I really appreciate you sharing your story, and especially like those more private areas, because I think that those of us that come from a background where you go, I've had, and I have had not. And I mean, I just think that's so powerful. I didn't know that about you, and that only makes me think more highly of you and what you've accomplished in a lifetime, and your lifetime's not over. But I think that that's really important, and I hope it inspires some of the doctors to go, what are you doing in your office? Like, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to just like, do you have a job or do you have a purpose? And why is it that we do these things? Because when you operate with that kind of intentionality, you accomplish things like what you've accomplished. There's many people have never collected $100,000 a year, much less 1 million or more. And so to hear from a guy that says, hey, I've done the million and it didn't make me happy, I think that that's powerful, because if it comes from any other source, then it's like, yeah, I'd like to find out. But you know what I mean? I think that's really cool for you to be that transparent and open about, I'm doing this because I want to make a difference, and I'm not doing this because of the money. Because if you wanted to, you probably build another office and get it up to 4 or 5 million, and you make plenty of money doing that too. You know what I mean?
I would have just scaled that. But this has been a fun journey.
That's
And
awesome.
then yeah, it's just I feel like if they just had better processes, a lot of doctors,
No doubt.
there's a lot of great clinicians out there that aren't great at business. And like with AI, it's getting better and better. And like we're building out a ton of really cool things that are going to take the place of people. And like kind of like where I see some of this going for a lot of these docs as AI continues getting better is you're going to be able to have a doc, you're going to have a CA, and that's it. AI
Yeah,
answering the phone,
I
scheduling
agree.
appointments, doing the
I
follow
agree.
up, chasing
Yeah,
down leads, AI editing your ads,
yeah,
reviewing kind of like your
yeah.
meta ads and stuff like that. It's getting so exciting. AI doing your documentation, but like it's not gonna, AI is never gonna replace the Chiro. It's never gonna do the
Oh, and it's
decompression.
never going to replace the staff in the back putting people on different therapies and bundling some of the services. Like I do feel like, a lot of doctors ask me about that. They say, well, what's going to happen? Is AI going to take over treatment? And I'm like, I think we might be a little ways away from,
As a radiologist or a pathologist, I'm gonna be a little nervous, right? For I'm an
yeah,
attorney,
totally.
I'm gonna be
I'd be very
nervous.
nervous right now that are getting expert reports from AI, and I'm going, oh my gosh, this is, you know what I mean? Like it's a game. The world is exploding.
Well, yeah, you could just like snap a picture of it, get a report and stuff like that. Yeah, it's AI's really cool. And yeah, like for us, like we just work on our 5 pillars. Like we just want to help them like sell for more, right? Identifying patients that pay more per visit, right?
Mhm.
And then sell more often, right? More new ones, get them to finish a treatment plan, go on to maintenance care, reduce your operating costs, reduce your accounts receivable, and then just finish your projects. And that's what we're working on with AI automation and just trying to make that data more actionable because like
Yeah,
your
this is
EHR system, they
this
just
is way more important, I think, for doctors than I think that we realize, especially those that are like in my generation. I've been in practice 30 years, or even if you've been in practice, 10 years or more, like the game has changed, right? So let's talk a little bit about like some of the actual benefits of what you do, because my hope is that people will be able to see your service as just a no-brainer investment in their practice. So I know that a lot of chiropractors struggle with like patients falling through the cracks and they're not following their recommendations, or where are they? They signed up for a care plan, they've missed, whatever. How does TrackStat help with those types of problems?
well, like it's gonna be 3 people involved in that. You're gonna have your provider, your front desk, and your analytics, right? It's got to come from the top, right? The provider needs to make a big deal on why you need to block schedules. So one of the things that I recommend people track is how many visits you have scheduled out over the next 30 days, right? Um, there's a stark difference between people that schedule out their visits and people that schedule by the visit. If they schedule by the visit, they'll lose half of their patients between visits 3 and 6.
Mm,
And then if they schedule them out, I don't care if it's 6 at a time, 12 at a time, whatever you do, people that schedule out their patients for multiple visits, they're going to be at double, triple, quadruple, or even further than that before they've lost 50% of their patients. So, like, that's a big thing. And then for a front desk, like a leading indicator, I like looking at their scheduling rate. What are the percentage of people that came in today or last week that left with the next visit? 75% or higher is where you want to be. We have practices in the high 90s. Now they're going to be more insurance and more referrals. And like, so they have a high percentage right there. And then you'll have some people that are higher fee and advertising. And some of the people, like patients come in, it's not a right fit for them, right? Or it's a right fit, but not a financial fit for them. So they can't move forward with your decompression plan. So I think 75 or higher is a good number. Because if you're at 95%, it means that your fees are too low, right? That
mm,
means only 5% of the people are not coming back. But if
right.
it's at 75% and you're advertising, that makes sense. Now, if you're a referral based practice, 75, like it'll be 85 or 88 or 90%. But like I think 75% or higher, 75 at the floor is a number. And then obviously the outcome of that is visits. And then I like looking at dollar per visit average.
Mm,
And like people don't realize like $5, like I've mentioned before, if you're seeing 100, I think 25 visits a week, $5, you work 50 weeks a year, that's 30 something grand. If you do $15 extra on 125 visits, that's like almost 100. It's like 96,
Wow.
97 grand.
Wow.
So it's like it doesn't take much to move the needle, which is
Yeah.
why, adding in modalities make a huge thing. And, with TrackStat, we'll have automation, AI, help them identify who's falling through the cracks. But ideally, you prevent that from happening in the first place by block scheduling them.
Awesome. Now, one of the things that I've heard you talk about with our staff, especially when we first came on board, was this idea that like texting is a real differentiator, right? That TrackStat, and a lot of people do texting, but tell us about how TrackStat, uses texting as a differentiator in helping drive growth and maybe share some examples.
Just like prior, like identifying who you need to reach out to. Like we'll take like someone no showing for an appointment, right? We'll text them. You guys call them, text them the next day, and then we give you a list of the non-responders where it's actionable, where you could text, email, schedule, set a follow-up all in one spot in a workflow. And if the front desk knew that they're getting measured on a rescheduling rate and you're keeping them accountable to that, they should do a better job, right?
Mhm.
I think stats are great, but like if you don't change any behavior
Right.
from it changing, then it's not
Right.
even worth measuring. And, like ours will do appointment reminders like everything else, but the cost of ours is pretty much the cost of an appointment reminder system. So for, like consultants like yourself, like people like it because they're getting all this other stuff like analytics, reporting, all that stuff, reviews, scheduling, but for the price of their online scheduling. So they could replace theirs with ours at no extra cost.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so for people that are curious, right? Like we have a lot of people in our community that are probably have heard about you, but if you're curious about trying TrackStat, I know that you have some special offers. What's the best way for somebody to get started with that?
I'd say just visit the website, trackstat.org, TrackStat.org. Click the button, watch a demo. There's a little short little demo on there. There's a spot for you to schedule a call. Like I recommend doing a call. If it seems like a right fit, you do a free trial. And then if you still like it at that point, then you can start paying for it. We do have to have an agreement on the trial because we're dealing with HIPAA data. So that's your business associates agreement. We're not getting a credit card or any kind of payment information. I always hate doing trials where you have to put in a card because sometimes you forget to cancel it and then you get charged for it. So we don't do that. So that's how I recommend getting started. And honestly, most people, when they take a look at it, it looks like a nice to have. And then once they see all the people that have dropped out of their practice with all their different reports, some of them feel nauseous, some of them feel excited.
Well, I think that for me as a business owner, if I have problems, I want to know about them. Like we live in the world of reality. So sometimes we may not like the truth hurts, we may not like our circumstances, but if there's a problem in the business, you have to be able to bring it to the forefront of your mind if you're going to resolve it. And so that's one of the things that I appreciate about having this type of technology is that I can have a tough month, but it's not going to be because of my lack of effort and input and our staff's diligence. There's many other things that we have to combat in practice, but to know the facts and to know the numbers and to live in reality, I think it's really important for a business, to not do that. It's just almost guaranteed headaches.
It's yeah, and you want it in real time, especially if you're advertising. Like, and then yeah, like I've had clients where they're in Florida. It's like, I hate PI, I hate PI. And it's like set up a report, and he's like, guys, like, you know what? I kind of like PI. It's like because it was 10% of his practice, but 50% of his revenue. So
Wow.
or like you have these
Exactly.
people that are taking Ash insurance and like they're like, well, they're busy. They don't know if they can get rid of it and run the numbers. It's like you're collecting $21 a visit. Is that how you want to spend your time? And this person was doing acupuncture on them. And I was like, they realized, it's not worth it. I remember when we decided to quit taking Ash, we ran the numbers and like my wife, we realized that we could lose, I think 75 or 80% of her patients and charge her cash rate and still make the same. So when she quit taking it, she lost 30% of the people. She did not lose 70 or
Any
80%.
of the money.
And then she got to quit doing those stupid reports. And, she enjoyed seeing patients. She did not enjoy doing the paperwork.
Yeah. Well,
So
I know your time is valuable. I have one more question that I want to ask you. You work with a variety of different clinics, you have extensive experience. Who is like your ideal client? What is the what clinic needs to really intentionally explore the merits of what you have?
I think we do best when there's involvement with a real manager or the owner. Husband wife is by far our favorite because they're profit focused. The big thing that our software does is it helps them squeak out more profit in their practice. So, like, usually the spouse that's the operator, that's a no-brainer. Like, if I get on a call and it's a husband wife team, like, I'm 99.99999% certain that they're going to move forward because they're profit focused. Or like if they do a call and there's some involvement from the owner, it's great. It's the I feel like when they sign up, doc gets excited, they sign up and they pass us off to a 22-year-old that's paid salary and like, you mean I'm going to have to see more patients? I don't want that. I don't want this. I don't want that. And like where they're not align with the owner's vision. And
Uh,
it's not always the case, right? It's like we've had great calls with people and they're young people doing the calls and they're bought in on the vision of serving more people and they're excited and they're trying to do that. But like we'll get on, like we'll have some people and they literally say, I don't want to see more people. I don't want to do any of this. It's like, all right, well, we'll set up all the automations, but like they literally don't want the automations to get old people to come in. So we don't want any of these reactivations. We don't want these reviews. We don't want all this stuff. And their goal is to do as little work as possible and see as little patients as possible so they have more time to go on TikTok. Right. So it's like, and I say that jokingly, but like there are people like that. So it's like if the owner gets on there a little bit, not on every call, but like at least has an idea of what's going on, it's a great fit, right? Or if they have like a manager that's vested in growing the practice, like
mm,
if they want to grow the practice or get more profit out of the practice, those are great fits. If we begrudgingly get passed off to someone that doesn't want the practice to grow and doesn't care if the owner's more profitable, that's
yeah.
not always a great fit.
Yeah, that's really great. And I was thinking while you were talking, since we both work with a lot of clinics, there are so many people out there that they think that they want change and progress and growth, but then they're not willing to take any action in that direction. And so it's like growth and progress and change and improvement doesn't happen naturally, right? Like there's things that are necessary to be
Yeah,
implemented.
and like our onboarding's not that hard. We do the whole thing. Like if they could do a 30 to 45-minute call once a week for like 4 weeks, it's done.
Yeah.
And like if they're 100 visit a week practice, they spend like 30 minutes doing workflows a week, they'll see 115 visits a week. It's not that hard. Like, why wouldn't you spend 30 minutes on admin time to get an extra 10 to 15 visits a week, right?
Yeah.
It's
So good. Well,
yeah.
if I wasn't already part of your thing, I'd be calling you after this webinar. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I look forward to just a continued work relationship with you, and I hope you have an awesome rest of your day.
You too. Thank you for having me.